Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be back in Bali. It's wonderful to meet many old friends and to make new ones. So first of all, thank you very much to the organizer, Güntner, for putting this wonderful event together and having ATMOsphere to share some of the insights that we have accumulated over 20 years working with many of you here in the room, over 200 companies globally, with natural refrigerants, advancing this cause. So first, few bits about ATMOsphere. ATMOsphere has been on the journey to introduce natural refrigerants, as we like to say, clean up the cooling, since 2006, so close to 20 years by now. In order to make this happen, we have developed a number of platforms. Some of you may know we are organizer of ATMOsphere events. We have organized more than 80 of them globally. Just yesterday, we have announced our upcoming event for the first time in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi in September 2026. Just 4 weeks from now, we will be in Padova in Italy, organizing our 15th ATMOsphere Europe event. We also are the publisher of naturalrefrigerants.com, bringing you the latest news from the HVAC industry when it comes to natural refrigerants across the board. We have introduced the ATMO approved label, which is recognizing the best-in-class manufacturers of natural refrigerants, and we also publish regular reports. So today I will share some of the insights from our natural refrigerant state of the industry report that we published in January this year. This is all based on the data accumulated until December 2024. I will try to bring you some of the latest insights also on the progress that we see happening this year. We are actively working on accumulating data from the key markets to include in our 2025 version, which will be published in February next year. So please, here in the room, do share with us your latest number of projects when it comes to natural refrigerants. Today, I will take the moment to celebrate what we have achieved as an industry last 20 years. There is literally millions of natural refrigerant systems in the market today. Not millions, billions, if you like to include residential fridge with isobutane, right? When we look at the commercial and industrial sectors, both refrigeration, heat pumps, and more process cooling, HVAC as well, there is millions of installations. But natural refrigerants still only represent under 10% of all the global applications. So we have a long way to go. But the achievements of last 20 years, thanks to many of you in this room, have been significant. Before I move on, I would like to run a little survey. Can you please raise your hand if you work with ammonia? Help me understand the audience. All right, I see many hands coming up. Raise your hand if you work with hydrocarbons. Who likes hydrocarbons? Okay, I see a few hands up, maybe a little bit less than ammonia. And finally, who works with CO2? All right, I see a couple hands. So I would say 70–80% of the audience already work with natural refrigerants. So let's move on. I will start with a few slides on the global market. Self-contained hydrocarbon plug-in cabinets. All sorts of, from vending machines to merchandisers, chest freezers. In the key markets that we have addressed in this 2024 version, we estimate more than 30 million of the plug-in hydrocarbons in the key markets of Europe, North and South America today. So by now it's well over 33–35 million. The rest of the world, of course, also have a plug-in cabinets. We believe this is a low-hanging fruit from the rest of the world, and we see thousands of installations across Southeast Asia, in Japan, in China, Australia. So this is the, again, low-hanging fruit. There is no reason for the industry not to proceed with introducing hydrocarbon cabinets as a standard because they have superior efficiency and they are well proven in this sector. Ammonia. We, of course, know that ammonia has been around for many years. The traditional liquid overfeed still is the popular go-to when it comes to many parts of the world, including Southeast Asia, China, etc. But we see more and more trend towards low-charge ammonia systems, different configuration from cascades, secondary, direct expansion, very popular in Australia, to package systems, container style. So there is a lot of innovation when it comes to industrial ammonia, and we see the ammonia going also from the traditional refrigeration to the new sectors, air-cooled ammonia, chillers, heat pumps, etc., as we already heard this morning. So ammonia in the key markets that we have covered has been also growing significantly. And finally, CO2 transcritical. So this is just the first snippet of the data we'll be presenting today. This is the global overview. Today, there is more than 130,000 CO2 transcritical installations in commercial, food retail, and industrial applications. We heard from Harada-san about the progress in Japan. When we look at the map, you can see a clear hotspot in Europe. And that's not a coincidence. Europe has been the leader when it comes to CO2 transcritical for over 15 years, and it's the result of the ambitious policy that EU has introduced since 2015. So Europe has been leading the way. North America, Canada has been ahead for many years, but the US is now accelerating. Interestingly, for some, Latin America, there's a lot of progress with CO2 transcritical in both food retail and industrial refrigeration. Japan very much contributed to the condensing units in small footprint solutions, but also industrial lately. And finally, Australia, New Zealand. Again, CO2 is established technology across food retail and industrial refrigeration. Now, we did not have the capacity to cover the whole world, of course, but that does not mean that there is not CO2 transcritical technologies, as we already heard from Harada-san in Malaysia. Actually, here in Indonesia, maybe less known fact, there is at least 12 CO2 transcritical convenience stores running around Jakarta since 2015 or 12, around that time, so more than 10 years ago. That was a project, one of the first installations in Southeast Asia. You have, across Southeast Asia, we estimate about 50 transcritical systems, both in industrial and commercial, and this will go up. In Africa, Africa have hundreds of CO2 transcritical stores by now. China, close to 50 CO2 transcritical projects by now. Moving on. So you can see the trend in Europe further accelerating. The policy has sent a clear message to the industry. The end users are investing in natural refrigerants. CO2 is a popular solution for food retail, also competing with propane and water loop systems, but you can see that this trend is accelerating. Interestingly, US, still well behind the world, but we have a 2010 moment in US, and we believe the uptake of CO2 will accelerate this year included. The market share, this is also interesting, just to put things in perspective. When we look at the total number of food retail stores, Europe, more than 30% of all stores are already using CO2 transcritical today, followed by New Zealand, 22%, Japan, again, because of the contribution of the small footprint condensing CO2 unit systems, but very closely followed by Ecuador. Who would have known that Latin America is catching up when it comes to CO2 transcritical? You can see some of the developments on the map. So a lot of progress around the world. Here, similar data, you can see that the penetration is growing at quite a significant pace in both Europe, Japan, a little bit, close to double in North America, and we will see another increase this year. So let's dive in Europe with a few more details. Here you can see the breakdown. Again, this is data December 2024. By now, there is at least 20,000 more installations in Europe. You can see the breakdown between the large centralized CO2 systems, condensing units, and also industrial. So industrial CO2 transcritical is picking up the pace. And it's not the case only in Europe, it's the case in other parts of the world. Again, you can see the acceleration continues. Similar, you can see the annual increase just last year was over 30% in Europe. Again, this is the result of the very competitive market, ambitious and clear policy, and basically all the stakeholders are assuming that this will continue. There is no reason to doubt that there will be different change in technology. In industrial, you can see the acceleration in industrial. So over 1,000 projects with CO2 transcritical in Europe alone. Hydrocarbons, Europe, 17 million, so tens of millions of propane isobutane cabinets. Low-charge ammonia, also, again, ammonia is not going anywhere. It has been part of the industrial refrigeration system for many years. There's a lot of innovation in that space, and we see hundreds of projects coming online with different configurations, again, increasing efficiency, increasing safety, reducing the charge. Hydrocarbon chillers. This is a new part of the data that we have collected, first time last year. By now, there is more than 10,000 hydrocarbon chillers in process cooling across Europe, and this is one of the fastest growing segments. Many of you who have attended latest trade shows in Europe have seen the innovation when it comes to air-cooled propane chillers up to 1.5 megawatt. So this is also emerging strong trend. North America, acceleration of the transcritical CO2 in both food, retail, and industrial. US has caught up with Canada and now is leading the way. Last year, we have introduced more than 1,000 CO2 transcritical stores across US. This year, it might be close to double. So there's no way of stopping. This has been decided by the large food retail stores. I know there's a lot of discussion with EPA and possible change of the technology rule, but it doesn't mean that this market is stopping. The acceleration will continue. You can see again the acceleration in food retail and also industrial. Similar data, United States, Canada, and combined when it comes to industrial, when it comes to food retail. When it comes to industrial sites, combined more than 870 projects with CO2 transcritical. Again, US is taking a lead. Centralized, packaged, different types of ammonia configuration, significant growth year to year in all these applications in both US and Canada, similar to what we have seen in Europe. The growth continues. You can see another acceleration last year. Australia, New Zealand, let's have a look what's happening down under. Australia has been leading when it comes to CO2 since many years. They were among the first to introduce CO2 HFC cascades, and now they are making a lot of progress with CO2 transcritical, and this is of course driven by the biggest retail chains like Coles and Woolworths. So across Australia, 650 transcritical projects, both retail and industrial. And again, business as usual for many of the retail groups. New Zealand and Australia, transcritical about 80 projects. Ammonia, again, this is a direct expansion, mostly a low-charge ammonia system, 140 projects by now. Again, a lot of progress. Latin America, again, this might have been a surprise to some of you. There's a lot of progress in Latin America. And the story goes, in Europe, we have developed the technology, this is spreading around the world. So the Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia, we don't have to repeat the same mistakes that we have done on technology development. And Harada-san is a great example how you can leverage the experience that there was already available when it comes to CO2 transcritical and other technologies. So transcritical across Latin America, Central, Latin, and South America, 680 projects with CO2, mostly food retail, and these are large as well as small ones, 100+ industrial sites. Low-charge ammonia transcritical, again, Mexico, Central and South America, 160 industrial sites. I know there are a lot of data. You can go and refer to our report. All of this is available there. So if you are interested about what's driving these markets, what are the policies, and other market dynamics, you can refer to the report for more details. And finally, Japan. We have already heard from Harada-san. Japan has been one of the pioneers when it comes to CO2. Since 2000, there is more than 10 million CO2 heat pumps across Japan. Again, maybe less known fact. When it comes to refrigeration and industrial CO2, by now well over 14,000 projects, mostly convenience stores. Supermarkets are a little bit behind. There is not much access to large capacity racks, but as we heard from Harada-san, this may change. And industrial sites, so by now more than 500 industrial sites with CO2 transcritical in Japan. Some of the growth rates and the acceleration you see in food retail and industrial. This is the growth, again, significant growth of last year, and we expect several thousand installations this year as well. Now, few bits. So far, we talked about refrigeration, commercial, industrial, a little bit of light commercial, some plugins. Now we see a lot of new technologies coming to this space, and they are leveraging the experience that the industry has accumulated over the last 20 years when it comes to all natural refrigerants in all applications. That goes to development of large capacity compressors, the development of other components like ejectors, etc. So a lot of progress, and the whole world is benefiting from that experience. Fast adoption in heat pumps. So a few points when it comes to other applications. Residential air to water, both CO2 and propane, more than 12 million installations, mostly in Japan with CO2, but we see Europe bringing up propane in hundreds of thousands of units per year. Air-to-air split, the holy grail of this industry. I believe that's the hardest sector to convert. But we already have more than 1.5 million propane split units across the world. Mobile air conditioning, a lot of discussion taking place, mostly in Europe, but also in China. Again, little known fact that there is more than 1 million passenger cars using CO2 mobile air conditioning system. That's the Volkswagen ID series, mostly in Europe. So more than 1 million units with CO2. Heat pumps and air conditioning for trains and buses. Again, a lot of progress, not just with CO2 and propane, but also with air and other solutions. So we see natural refrigerants entering all the sectors. We heard a lot from Chia already this morning about industrial heat pumps with ammonia. So we are talking about up to 10, sometimes more of a megawatt of heating capacity. Commercial chillers with propane. This is a massive, fast-growing opportunity for the industry, starting in Europe, but now it's spreading around the world. Australia is making a lot of progress as well. So these are up to 1.5 megawatt air-cooled systems with one rack. Who would have guessed this a couple of years ago? CO2, popular in both commercial and industrial heat pumps. And again, 5 years ago you would have called me crazy, but now we have a 50 megawatt of heating with a CO2 transcritical system in Europe. So these numbers are mind-boggling. Data center cooling, a massive opportunity for the industry. We will hear more about it also in the afternoon. But we are now putting together all the bits and pieces that are happening with natural refrigerants. And there are good examples in North America as well as Europe on CO2, on ammonia air-cooled, but also on propane chillers. So data center cooling, we are now working on a new report that will be capturing the best practice when it comes to natural refrigerants in data centers. So very interesting and very exciting sector to be part of. And just an example of how quickly things change. A couple years ago, it would have been a rarity. There was some of the manufacturers were involved with propane for many years, but some of you may have been to the ISH show earlier this year in Frankfurt, and you may have seen that everything was about propane. There was at least 20 different manufacturers introducing propane to their lineups. All the big companies that have been hesitant, let's say, they now cannot ignore this. So the level of progress and the growth, the speed of the change over the last years has been tremendous. So natural refrigerants are proven, safe, efficient, and viable today across the applications. And finally, this is just a few examples of the news that we publish every day. We talk about developments with natural refrigerants in all applications around the world. These are examples from Africa, from Middle East, from large heat pumps for data center, from commercial air conditioning to commercial and industrial heat pumps. Again, many examples every day, and some of them are more than traditional. We talk about new natural refrigerants, and there is a lot to do. So with that, I would like to invite the industry to be courageous, to lead the way, because there's a lot to do. We still have the 90% to capture, but there's a lot happening on that front, and I look forward to working with you and many others around the world to make this transition happen. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dusek, for setting the stage with your valuable insights on the global landscape of natural refrigerants. Now, as we'll let Mr. Dusek here to get ready to moderate the very next session. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jan Dusek here as the co-founder at ATMOsphere will shortly after this moderate a panel discussion that will also bring the advocates of natural refrigerants from both Europe and also the Asia Pacific region. Now, the discussion will span a wide range of topics, starting from an overview. What are the latest trends to look at in the Asia Pacific refrigeration market and the region's position within the global natural refrigerant market, to what are the experiences in the European area in examining the current status of the Asia Pacific countries in this field. Now, ladies and gentlemen, of course, we'd like to also inform you that shortly after this very exciting panel discussion, where we will hear insights from our key experts, from the advocates and our leaders that are joining us here up on stage, we will continue shortly after that with a lunch session together to have some more time for all of you to discuss even further about the topic that we're going to bring up. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, joining us up here on the stage, we have some of the panelists up to, well, 4 panelists joining us up here on stage together with Mr. Dusek as our moderator. So with that, let's start by inviting our very first panelist. Mr. Dusek, would you like to come and join me or probably take your seat as a moderator today? All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, our very first panelist, let's welcome on the stage Managing Director of AHT Cooling System Asia Pacific, Mr. Ryuta Honzawa. Mr. Honzawa, please to take your seat. Welcome to the stage. Thank you so much for taking the time. Next, we'd like to invite the Sales Export Manager of the ARNEG Group and Export Director for ARNEG Korea, Gabriele Sernani. A very good morning and welcome. Come and join us up on the stage. Third panelist today, we'd like to welcome from EcoStar, Yahia Henblass. And last but not least, to also share his insight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to invite Alessandro Moneta, Güntner Business Development Manager for Commercial and HVAC in the European market. All right, so we will begin this discussion with all the trends and all of the opportunities. So, Mr. Dusek, I'll hand you back the stage to you and let you begin.
Thank you very much. All right. Good morning still, for a couple more minutes. It's an honor to represent ATMOsphere and to chair this exciting panel. And we talked a lot about what's happening around the world, and now we have the real experts from the industry who are on the ground in many parts of the world, from Europe to Middle East and Asia Pacific. So we have about half an hour to explore different topics. We will talk about policy, about training, about projects, about what has been driving natural refrigerants in respective part of the world. So with that, I will ask my first question. I will start with you, Alessandro, because we have seen that Europe has been a hotspot for natural refrigerants for many years. Can you please elaborate what has been driving this market for the last 10 years and what is going to drive the market for next 10? What is your take?
Thank you very much. Let's say that somebody can say that we have too many policies in Europe, but I see policies as the main driver of this natural refrigerant development. They set challenges, they oblige us to innovate, and they support the market. Just to give some example, with the Green Deal, the European Committee has set that the future energy trends, which are mainly decarbonization and electrification. Electrification with renewable energy, of course. And to bring this principle into action, they have also launched some programs like Repower Europe, which is mainly focused on electrification, and the F-gas regulation, which is mainly focused on decarbonization. And specifically in our field, I see these two programs strictly complementary because Repower push in the market new applications such as heat pump, not only residential but also industrial, and all new applications are mainly powered by natural refrigerant. Yeah, what you show in your slide is very representative because to show the impacts of regulation in the real life. Let's take the example of the CO2. The CO2 transcritical solution in Europe, the first installation was built probably in the beginning of years 2000. But we have seen the exponential growth only in 2016, just a couple of years after the F-gas regulation release. So, yes, policy are the driver of this innovation and development in the market.
Thank you. And just to add to that, policy is the key aspect. And one of the reasons that we see so much progress in the market last couple of years is also the new boogeyman in the house, and that's the PFAS. PFAS and the possible regulation that might be upcoming by the end of this decade is very much driving the progress in the market. Do you see some of the policy incentives, regulation also affecting your parts of the world? Anybody would like to add on policy, maybe also training? Maybe Yahia, can you please tell us about the role of the policy in Saudi Arabia? Is there something that is helping to drive the market?
Yeah, thank you, Ian. Just to give you a short introduction, Saudi Arabia part of Vision 2030 to make Saudi as a logistic hub for the region. And with the initiative of Saudi Green and Net Zero by 2060, putting extreme pressure on the refrigeration industry to build, let us say, a very efficient logistic warehouse or cold storage, and pushing towards to use natural refrigerant. One of that is ammonia. So this is pushing towards to use this as a policy and legislation.
Thank you very much. So in my presentation, I mentioned thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, if not millions of installations around the world, and we have still a bit of a blind spot on Asia Pacific. So I would like to ask both Gabriele and Ryuta-san about the latest projects in your part of the world, in South Korea and Southeast Asia, when it comes to natural refrigerants. Gabriele, can we start with you? What is the latest CO2 transcritical project that you have been working on and the milestone that have been achieved recently?
Okay, in Korea, the regulation are a bit late than Europe, as you know. As the other speakers say, that in Europe, CO2 transcritical is a standard. In Korea, it's a bit different because in 2024, we installed the first total CO2 transcritical system for a retail store. And that case was like a win-win situation between us and the clients because the clients want to have like a landmark to see and show that they can have the greenest store as possible, whatever. For us, it was not a landmark, but a benchmark. We want to put a benchmark in the market to say to the market that's having a full CO2 transcritical supermarket is possible. That's what we did. Yeah.
How is the system performing by now? It's been a year and a half in operation.
After 1 year of performance, everything is okay. The client is really happy about that because even the fact that the first it was a bit skeptical because of the higher price and it didn't want to be the first. That's why. But after that, when he saw the bill of the energy with the 57% lower energy consumption compared with the 404 system, he was pretty much happy about that.
So Japan is just a short flight away. There's more than 15,000 installations. Do you see that this is the beginning of the CO2 uptake for Korea in both commercial and industrial?
Okay, in 2024, at the end of 2024, the government has to match with the 2030 regulation to don't use refrigerant gas with a GWP higher than 150. So it will be a first step, but we are sure that in the next year we will see more and more stores, and not only stores that will run with CO2 or ammonia or also R290 solution. Yeah.
There is a regular show called HARFCO every 2 years in Korea, and last time we visited, there was a number of manufacturers that were manufacturing CO2 locally. So that seems like a beginning of a new wave. Thank you very much, Gabriele. So let's move to Ryuta-san. And AHT has been part of this transition for many, many years. You have been leading on propane systems in basically globally. Can you share what are the latest projects in Southeast Asia? Anything you'd like to highlight, please?
Okay, for our project case, propane R290 with water loop is a combination for the system to supermarket. And two recent cases in Thailand and Singapore for such system to the supermarket. And for Thailand, we have been installed such system for many years, over 10 years. And since then, operation has been quite good, and no issue for the quality or something, the leakage and flammable issue. Nothing happened till now for Thailand. And recently, Singapore, the one supermarket chain, also adopted our system for such R290 and water loop for the Multitech vertical showcase. And yeah, they also operate, runs well so far. So yeah, those are the cases for us.
So these are the first installation of water loop in Thailand and Singapore, among the first across Southeast Asia, right? A question, please.
Yeah. So, those two cases, yeah, Thailand already over 10 years ago, but yeah, we are the pioneer to install like such system. And regarding the policy or the country background for Thailand, it's not really still tend to go to the natural gas. No less regulation or incentive for there. But even though some of the customer really aware for the environmental friendly, and they tend to go. So regarding the Singapore, now the government side considers a GWP less than 150, and now the latest plan is to execute that on April 27. So that's sort of, and also carbon tax is increasing year by year towards 2030. So that's sort of the background, let's say, trend makes them drive to natural gas in Singapore. Yeah.
So if we look at Southeast Asia, over the last couple of years, we hear about first projects in industrial with CO2, first project in commercial, both propane and CO2, first ammonia, low-charge systems. What is your advice or what is your experience? How do you overcome the challenges, the barriers, the initial doubts, and this will not work, and not efficient, or too costly, or how do you address these barriers? How do you communicate to your customers? How do you convince them to make that leap of faith? You can start with Gabriele.
Yeah, I can start. Thankfully, as ARNEG Korea, we have a direct experience and indirect experience in promoting CO2, because, as I said before, we are the first who did a CO2 conventional refrigeration, full CO2 in Korea, so we have a direct experience. But thankfully, we have on the back the experience of ARNEG Group in Europe, South America, and other parts of the world, so we can push them more in using this and show them the result, especially not only in terms of performance, but in terms of energy consumption and efficiency. Yeah, that's a good point to push this new technology.
Yahia, can you please tell us about the situation in Saudi Arabia when it comes to industrial refrigeration? Is it all ammonia, or do you still have to compete with some fluorinated gases, or is there maybe a next stage? Would it be some of the low-charge ammonia systems we discussed today? What's the situation, please?
In Saudi Arabia is different case. Saudi is hot climate. Most of the city was over 45 degrees centigrade for all the year. The space between the cities is a long way. For this reason, ammonia, the logistics center or the cold storage try to build one logistic hub in each cities. That should be large. So amount of, pallet position, if we talk about logistic, more than 10,000 pallet position. So we see only ammonia is suitable for that with, if you need to build and design something very efficient. Still, for small installation, still we can see a lot of HFCs installation, but just last month, on September, Saudi Arabia agreed on Kigali Agreement, part of Montreal Protocol, to phase down the HFCs. So from last month, count start to move towards low-charge ammonia, let us say, even for large installation, and also looking for something really suitable for small installation, which is before it was HFCs or even different solutions.
Thank you. Alessandro, in Europe in particular, we have come a long way last 15 years, but in the beginning, the doubts were very similar. It's not efficient, it's not going to be working in high ambient temperatures, and there was a lot of that, right? And we have overcome many of these challenges. And I remember back in the day was the CO2 equator. Do you remember those maps that draw the line? CO2 will not be efficient beyond certain line in Europe right now. CO2 is commonplace in everywhere across Europe. What can Europe share with the audience here? What this experience, how does it help us to overcome the same challenges that we face here?
Now I will say that I don't see any barrier in the use of natural refrigerant in Europe, at least. Of course, as you said, the growth of the CO2 transcritical solution in Europe has not been a very quick process, but it took a lot of time, many years. And in this direction, looking at the past, I can mainly identify three main points, which are technology, cost, and competence. Technology right now is no more an issue. We have the technology, it is applicable more or less everywhere, in any climate condition. The cost, as the installation must be efficient, a cost must be sustainable. In the beginning, a food retail refrigeration installation with CO2 was 2 times more expensive than a traditional solution, but with the technology and material improvements right now, this gap has been closed quite well. The last point is the competence, and probably this is the most critical point because we can use the technology only if we know the technology. So still now, after so many years, there are a lack of competence among some small installing company in Europe. In this direction, the biggest manufacturers and wholesalers has founded their own train academy in order to close this gap and make the F-gas regulation in place, because this is a very important topic, training and the education of the people.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more, and training is now becoming mandatory after the new version of the EU F-gas regulation in Europe. Let's talk about training in your parts of the world. Are there organized initiatives when it comes to training on natural refrigerants in Saudi Arabia, Korea, Southeast Asia? Can you please comment, Yahia?
Yeah, for sure there is organized training by the authorities in Saudi Arabia, and also private sector. For last couple of years, they took a good part of that towards the natural refrigerant. Most of it focused on ammonia. And for last 2-3 years, CO2 exists there. But in our region still, we are following the Europe standard and F-gas regulation. So most of the training happening in Europe for the expertise.
Gabriele?
Yeah, when it comes to CO2, especially in Asia, the most difficult part to convince new clients is about the price, the risk of the cost, initial cost that is higher than a traditional refrigerant gas, and knowledge, yeah, because they are skeptical about using it, they don't know if they can do or not. As ARNEG, we are doing a total solution training that's total solution things. We provide the items, the training, the design of the project, everything together in order to help the clients in order to match with their request and be successful with the CO2 solution.
So there is training, it's internal training, you need to train your team on the ground, but then there's also training of your contractors and training eventually of the customers, the end users themselves, right?
Most of it, the contractor, yes. Yeah.
Can you please share?
Yeah. The same situation for R290 business means internal training, and also for contractor side. We frequently need to do something, the training. And besides that, the key point for us is to really show the quality assurance of the R290, since that particular refrigerant have a high flammability, and that need to be really be relieved for the users and the contractor side. That's one key point that we need to deliver the message, not only by the training, but also pile up some of the reference case and show it to the other customer horizontally.
The training of the technicians, it's not going to go away. Anywhere in the world, even though we are 15 years in of introducing natural refrigerants, this is still the #1 issue. Because as the technology scale up, you need more and more technicians to be familiar with the technology. Let's talk about, we talked about price in Europe. After many years and highly competitive market, there is a close to price parity between HFC system and natural refrigerant systems. How can we overcome this initial price barrier here? Is it competition necessary? Do you welcome your competitors to join this market building phase in new markets? It's not easy to be the first, and it's not easy to be alone.
No, absolutely. It's not easy to be the first, especially because I say the Korean case is quite particular because Korean refrigeration industry is quite developed, but the regulation is still a bit old. For example, in Korea, we have this regulation of high-pressure gases that is dated. It was implemented in 1979, and still really strict. So whenever we have a new project with CO2, we have to move in this old regulation, and because of that, we had to import a lot of components and items related with the project from Europe or from other countries. So if there will be a release in new regulation, smooth regulation, it will be easier for us and for other makers to improve these markets, made everything cheaper, I say.
Saudi Arabia, is the market fully competitive, or do you expect newcomers to come in and challenge the established players with new systems and higher efficiency, lower charge? Is it a dynamic market? Is there opportunity for some of the suppliers here in the room?
Yes, for sure. Saudi Arabia is very competitive market, but still, for last few years, a lot of incomers from outside to deliver, mainly from Europe and Gulf countries, to deliver very efficient installation. If we talk about CO2, still we have few cities in Saudi, north and south, with cold climate, maximum temperature, ambient temperature 35. So still CO2 start to be there for small logistic and supermarket. So the market is very competitive for this solution, and Saudi is welcoming all.
Okay, question. Let's talk about future. If you had opportunity to change one thing to help drive natural refrigerants forward faster, what would be that? What would it be? Would it be policy, training, technology, anything you wish? Make a wish of what would be the highest impact, let's say, on accelerating this transition.
For the experience in Europe, policy have been the driver.
Would it be PFAS?
Could be.
All right. Please, let's start with Ryuta.
Yeah, policy for sure. That we really also expect to see some of the strong policy like Europe doing now. And besides that, some incentive for the natural gas usage and some high efficiency system really makes us drive more. Yeah.
Gabriele?
Yeah, absolutely. Policy. Because in Europe, they know what they can do, but they know better what they cannot do in one way. But in our case as Korean, we have this uncertainty because on one side, the government has use more green gases from 2030, but on the other side, we have this strict regulation of high pressure gas. It's a misleading situation, and there's a bit of uncertainty. I'm sure that if they can release new regulation and follow up this new regulation, it would be better for us.
Yeah, for sure. So we have policies, and it's going to become stronger and stronger. Just to give you an example, SFDA, Saudi Food and Drugs Authority, they launched 10 years ago that every chamber, every cold store, not the big, even the small one, it should be linked to their platform, and they should record the temperature and humidity for the whole day, for the whole year. So this putting hard forces to build something very reliable.
So we have a universal agreement among panelists asking for more ambitious policy in their respective markets. What about audience? Are we in agreement that we need more ambitious policy in, let's say, Asia Pacific? Let's zoom in. Is policy needed in order to accelerate this market? Would you agree? Can you please raise your hand if you agree? Okay. I see a few hands up. Excellent. I see some. Okay, excellent. Do we have any policymakers in the room? Maybe not, but let's bring this message to the policymakers in your respective countries, because that's what is the missing element. That is why Europe is leading the way, and that's why also Japan is a great example, right? In Japan, government has been investing between 60 to 70 million euro every year to help natural refrigerants to be introduced to the market. And in result, you see some of these technologies to be highly competitive in Europe and the rest of the world. So that initial incentive to help new technologies to the market is effective. Alessandro, would you like to add something?
I just want to add the things, because let's look at the impact of the policy, at least in my country, in Europe. So right now we have spoken mainly about refrigeration, CO2 in refrigeration, but I think that we are already in a step forward. I mean, the flexibility of the natural refrigerant has been improved a lot. So, and in addition to the standard application like industrial commercial refrigeration are growing a lot in many other businesses. And this is driven by policies. Just for example, heat pump for big district heating. We have already provided products for plant up to 25 megawatt, both with CO2 and ammonia and propane. Or data center, you showed before how many new propane chiller, hydrocarbons chiller are available in the market. And then even really new business. Just one of our customers has developed a energy storage which accumulate and release energy using a closed CO2 loop. So in this way, we can provide energy on demand with products available in the market and with zero CO2 emission. So this is the step forward, at least in Europe. We are no more speaking about the application of natural refrigerant, because that is given, is where we can use the natural refrigerant for new application.
Well said, absolutely. And what we have seen is the CO2 is from small systems is going to megawatts of capacity. Ammonia from large systems is going to small systems. So there is more and more overlap between the two solutions. While propane, traditional plug-in systems, now we are talking about chillers and heat pumps and water loops and many different configurations. Many of you offer more than one natural refrigerants. It's a standard to have a full portfolio of natural refrigerants. Now, let's talk about the project in future, let's say next 12 months, that you are the most excited about, and what can you disclose about the project? Which sector, which technology? Let's start with Ryuta.
Still, we are promoting the full R290 propane solution to the supermarket and convenience store. The full system covering the showcase side, the refrigeration, but also the backyard cold room. The whole natural gas could be the project and what we are aimed to. So yeah, the coming project, I hope and I believe that customer really have interest for such a full solution to shift fully from their traditional HFC to R290 propane.
If I just follow up on that, I know that you also have solutions that integrate the air conditioning and refrigeration together. Do you see that this is a future in Asia Pacific as well?
For AC, air conditioning side, actually the trend is a bit different with refrigeration. So of course the aim and direction is the same to aim to go to the low GWP side. But for air conditioning one, still, for example, like our Daikin group, still pushing the R32, the A2L, still a little flammable with less than GWP less than 650. Like such, the staging is a bit different. So the full system provision with the low GWP is one word for the future.
Yeah, essentially, I cannot enter in details about these arguments, but consider that we have to match with the request of the government of 2030, don't use any more gases with high GWP. I can just say that we want to be ready for that, so we are doing our homework. Yeah, we should be ready for that moment, because 2030, it's the day after tomorrow, practically.
Yeah, what is the next project you are going to be working on?
Next project for sure in Saudi Arabia, and focusing more on low charge ammonia and DX, ammonia DX, for for medium and big logistic warehouse and food factories. There will be one or at least two with CO2 pump system, cascade, and most of them, the rest will be logistic hub, comprehensive logistic hub, part of it dry store, then a cold store with ammonia DX and low charge ammonia.
Excellent. So we have a number of new applications, new solutions coming to market. A lot of exciting developments in Asia Pacific as well. This was the last question between the panel and your lunch. So I would like you to please join me with a round of applause for all the panelists. We hope that you enjoy the session.
Thank you.
Thank you.